Hey. Hey!
Hey,
Happy Water Cooler Wednesday.
happy Water Cooler Wednesday. We're so
Everybody
excited.
out in YouTube land,
hmm I'm
we
over
ready?
here trying to make sure that I share with other groups. So let's take a moment. I did some sharing. If you're out there in the audience, I'll ask you to do some sharing too. Share, let everybody know that we're here every Wednesday at 6 p.m. We love to have you guys here with us while we're doing it
Live. Live.
live, right? So even if you can't be
Yes.
here when we're live, check us out later on YouTube, Facebook.
Yep.
We are there for you, right? So we are so excited today because we're going to talk about, a lot of times we talk to the traditional buyer, but
Yeah.
today we're going to talk to the investor, right?
That's
Like,
right.
yeah,
And
sometimes,
we've been kind of going in the direction of the whole investment thing over the last couple of weeks when we first started talking about house hacking. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. So we want to talk to everybody. We want to make sure that we share with everybody all the things about the home buying process. If you're a buyer, if you're buying for yourself, if you're an investor, you're buying, well, you're buying for yourself, but using it as profit, as additional income. So we are here today, and we are going to talk about buy and hold
yep.
versus fix
Fix and
and
flip.
flip. All right. So my name is Deanne Branch, and I am with Allure Dream Homes. And today, as always, I have with me.
Faithful co-host. Lisa J, the house money mama, here from Nexa Mortgage, where brokers are better, and serving your needs for real estate investors as well as our traditional home buyers.
Yes, yes. So we are definitely so excited to have this conversation today because we want to talk about buy and hold versus fix and flip. So
Right.
what
Because
what
people have
what
all these TV shows on and stuff like that, flip that house or whatever. And
exactly zombie house and
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Right. All
Well,
of them makes it look like you can rehab a house in 30 minutes.
right. Oh, that was
Right.
quick.
I love
Nicely done. Nicely
I
done.
love Zombie House because there's one guy, he come on and he's like, "We're gonna get this house out in 10 days." I'm like, 10 days? Like,
It's
hey,
gonna
I
be like,
think
what's that song by Michael Jackson that got me working, working day and night?
exactly. And he does not modify on his open house. He's like, the open house is gonna happen on this day, and
Oh
we're gonna do
wow.
it this open house. And I'm like, whoo, okay, okay. So when I become a fixer flipper, I'm gonna be that guy.
You gonna be that guy?
30 days
Okay.
later, 30 days later, I'll be like, move that open house back a little.
Right.
but But there are definitely people out here who do this as a profession. And so
Mhm.
we're just going to talk a little bit about it and stuff. But, so Lisa, like, we talk about buy and hold. Like, what's a buy and hold?
So buy and hold by definition is considered a long-term investment strategy, and that's basically where an investor purchases a property, whether it's a single family, duplex, it could however many units. And the whole goal behind it is to make that property into an income producing property. It's
Yeah.
not the same as the house hacking that we talked about where you live in it and then you rent out a portion of it. But this is actually where it's designed, where you buy that property specifically for the purposes of renting it out to someone else.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Mhm.
So you could, a lot of people buy and hold single family homes.
They
They'll buy,
do.
right?
Yep.
They might buy a house that's been in foreclosure
Hmm.
or needs some
Tax
work,
liens, the
right?
tax sale.
Tax sales, right? There's a lot of different opportunities for you to buy a house, which is lower in price, because really the idea is that you have to find a house that's a little lower in price, so that you can then after you fix it up, if needed, maybe you might discover a house that actually doesn't need much work, a little bit
Yeah. A little bit of
cosmetic,
paint maybe and
right?
clean up.
Right. Cosmetics, change the carpeting, change the flooring, little things, and
Yeah.
then you can go ahead and rent it out to different people. A
And the
lot of times,
benefit,
a
I'm
lot of
sorry, I
times,
was just going to say, and the benefit for that is that you not only generate a monthly income, but then, because real estate appreciates, you also start to build up equity in that same property.
yeah, yeah. So a lot of good, lot of options is that some people might rent out to Section 8, right? Whereas
Yep.
you have a tenant, and
Ding, ding, ding,
then
ding, 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 ding,
right. And then the tenant is actually not really paying
ding.
you all of the rent. They might pay a portion of the rent, or they may not pay any of the rent. And the government, the state, handles their rent and sends it
Yeah.
to you automatically through direct deposit.
Ain't that nice? You just wake up in the morning and you done made, $1,500 or whatever it is.
Right. Hmm.
That's how
So
it goes.
right. So there's a lot of benefit to actually buying and holding property, because now you can have multiple properties bringing in income, and you can rent it out. Another idea is even a lot of people are doing Airbnbs, right? So they're
Yeah.
buying, they're holding, and they're looking for rental
Just
renters,
short term. Yeah.
right? Short-term renters, right? But even a short-term renter could be a little longer, because you could look at be interested in nurses, right?
Hmm.
So there's a nurses, normally if you're buying a property and you buy near a hospital, they're a great target audience for your
Yeah.
renters, because they'll actually pay up front, like 6 months in advance, as far as their term that they're traveling nurses. And so
Mhm.
they're staying there for a short term, but paying you in advance. So there's definitely lots of opportunities
And
in
I haven't done that, but
life.
I've heard that if you get into something like that, like because that would still kind of fall under corporate housing, I believe, but they have a tendency to pay the premium, you know. So
Hmm.
like with your market rent might be, I don't know, maybe $1,500 for the place that you want to rent out the unit. Um, but maybe as a corporate contract, instead of them paying 15, they might expect to pay, 2,200 or 2,500.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's a very good strategy.
yeah.
I like that, Dion.
So there's definitely a lot of opportunity there for you, as far as if you were interested in buying and holding. Okay. Let's talk about that. What's the fix and flip?
That other thing.
Mhm.
This is like a boxing match. It's a fix and flip. Is it gonna be buy and hold? What we doing? Who's gonna win?
Right, right, right,
So
right.
the I guess a good definition for fix and flip would basically just be buying a property. Usually, like how you mentioned about the buy and hold, usually you want to buy a property that is distressed or that's in need of repair. A fix and flip numbers are going to be very important because you don't want to get like now this I have seen on some of those shows where they get into a property to fix and flip and they either buy it for too high of a price
Hmm.
or they overinflate their budget for the rehab, and they end up spending too much money in rehab. So then that closes the margin for how much they'll actually make and profit
Profit.
off of the
Right.
deal.
Right.
So ideally, a fix and flip would involve buying a property that's in need of repair, and then you take the time to renovate it and then resell it on the retail market and make, obviously you want to make a profit from the resale of the property.
Right. And so that's what they talk about, the after repair value.
Yeah, ARV.
So right, the ARV, where
Mhm.
a lot of times some new investors, they just kind of look at a property and they're like, oh, okay, I want this one, I want this one, I want this one, but they're not really looking at the numbers,
Yeah.
in the property, as far as how much repair they want to actually put in there. So you really got to budget how much repair you want to put in there into the
Mhm.
property, so
Mhm.
then you can know what your return value is. And so, as a realtor, a lot of times, I may have some investors that might ask me, ask me for what we call is comps, right?
Yeah.
So comps is comparable properties that have sold within the last 3 to 6 months.
Mhm.
So now, okay, I've purchased this house for, let's say, 50,000. They're saying, okay, we're gonna purchase this house for 50,000. We think that we need about 50,000 worth of work into the property, because
Mhm.
you've had a contractor come out, give you estimates of the amount of work that's needed, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so now you've put into the property $100,000 worth into that property. So
Yep.
this is where those comps come in important, because you don't want to put in 50,000 if the property in that neighborhood return and investment is only like, if their comps are showing that a 3 bedroom, 1 bath, which is comparable to what you are buying,
Mhm.
only can be sold for 110,000.
Right. Or even
Basically,
125,000, because there's other stuff that you have to pay. You got to take into account. There's not just, I see buyer sides of the deal, the transaction. So I know what buyers pay, but I also know on the other side of that, there's fees that sellers have to pay too.
right.
Like here in the state of Illinois, we do, taxes in arrears. So there would
Mhm.
be property tax prorations. Depending on how you work
Survey,
out, if you have fees for the realtor or anything like that,
right.
you
So you have survey, you have like you mentioned, commission, agent commission,
Mhm.
because a lot of times as a seller, you're paying commission for the buyer's agent as well as the seller's agent. That has changed in August 17th of last year,
Right,
where that's a negotiable thing. But
right.
most people are actually paying the co-agent's commission as
Yep,
well. So
yep.
so you really want to know what you could list your property for. So a good flip in a case like this, where you purchased for 50,000, you put in about $50,000 worth of work. So now you got 100,000 in. You might be looking for a house that actually can sell for at least 185 to and up, right? So to
Mhm.
allow you to have a return for at least 50 to 60 or more $1,000 in
And
return.
not only that, but a lot of times I've noticed it seems like when people are doing fix and flip, because the goal is the way the money works, the longer you hold on to it without allowing it to make more money, the more money you actually lose. That's the
Yeah.
thought process behind how money works. So they want to get in the project, get out the project, and get their money. So most of the times, these investors, to make sure they're getting out as quickly as possible, if it can value at 185, they might sell it for 180 or 175, because they
Mhm.
want to, they know they can get the value, but because they want to get out of the transaction and get their money and move on to the next project, they'll sell it for a little bit less. Sometimes that's a strategy that they use. So they're not, being held up on
Depending
that
on the market,
100.
right? Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. I could see that. I also see some investors be like, I want all my money.
Yeah.
So but it all depends. I think a lot of that depends on the market. So like even right now, we're kind of in like what's called a normal market. So whereas the seller doesn't have an advantage and the buyer doesn't have an advantage, and so there are some properties that are actually sitting on the market a little longer.
Yeah.
So this is a risky time when you're an investor and you're actually going to, you're flipping a property, and so you want to make sure that you're actually flipping a property
Yeah.
that's going to make money for you. And so there's a lot of different things that go into that. You,
Yeah.
neighborhood, right? You might want to make sure that the community that you're doing this flip in actually has action as far as people buying and selling property and people
Uh-huh.
wanting to move into those areas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it desirable?
Yeah. Yeah. Just can't be pretty and put it in a bad neighborhood because
Right.
right. So,
Yeah, that's what's the first rule of real estate?
right. Yeah. So
Location. Second
location.
rule,
Hmm.
location. And
Right.
the third rule, location.
Right. Location, location, location.
That's
So,
right. That's right. And that is right.
mhm. So there's a yeah, so definitely there are some pros and cons to everything as far as buy and hold and fix and flip.
Mm,
So look, we talk Lisa, you want to share with the just
yeah.
kind of go over those pros with us
Yeah.
again?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like, if you're comparing them, I would say that for the buy and hold strategy, the obviously the monthly rental income is going to be your big pro for that. There are some tax benefits, and then, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, you do still get equity. You get to build equity because by you holding on to it, the property itself is going to appreciate. It should go up in value. So if you got into the property for say 100, maybe 150,000, over 5 years, that value could jump from 150,000 to maybe 220,000 or something like that. So you're building equity the time that you keep it. There's actually a percentage for that. I'll have to look that up. But I know I think it might be like 4%. So that's probably would be even more. But it's definitely going to get value that's going to increase. It's going to go up. Now for the fix and flip, you don't get the appreciation because you're not really holding on to it. The thing is you get in, you get out, you get in, you get out. But if you get in and get out right, you could walk away with 40, 50, $100,000 on any one given deal.
Right.
Depending on how fast you get in, how fast you get out, what your amount of money is, and obviously, the after repair value, what you end up selling it for. There's not a long-term tenant that you have to be concerned about. So, that's good in one way because of the fact that even though it's not the long-term money, you get all your money up front, but you also don't have the long-term responsibility,
Right. Right.
of what you would have if you were on a buy and hold. So I would say those are definitely pros for a fix and flip. That fast money.
Fast money. Right. So
Yes.
let's talk about the cons. So let's see. So for a buy and hold, some of the cons are that you have ongoing property management, right?
Yeah,
So
that's
you
true.
have to make sure that when your tenant calls you in the middle of the night and asks you to come and fix an issue, that you have the availability to go out and fix property, taking care of the maintenance, things like that. You have tenant risk because sometimes your tenants, they don't want to pay the rent.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we kind of
Or they
talk
don't want to
about,
keep up with the property.
right, they don't want to, exactly, they don't, right, they don't care about your property as if you would care about your property.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a tenant risk. And then it's also a slower return, right? So compared to the fix and flip, you get that money within 30, 45 days in in your pocket.
Yeah.
Now, um, you know, the con for buy and hold is that it's just money that happens over time. It could be a pro too, because you have a consistent income coming in, but
Yeah.
it's also, if you're looking for fast money, that's not the way. Right.
Right. Absolutely.
Right. For fix and flip, the cons is that it's high risk, right? You definitely some risk in actually purchasing property and understanding the condition of the home and being able to make repairs to the property, and also being able to do it within a timely fashion,
Yeah.
because we talked about that. I said the guy, he comes in, he like 10 days, we gonna flip this property in 10 days.
Right.
I'm like, oh, Lord. But where some people may have property fix and flip for years. And I have a nightmare story about
Oh
about a
boy.
property. Right. So but it all depends, right, on the person, on the team you have working with you.
Yeah.
There's a lot involved into it, and so there's definitely some risk there. And then there's a large upfront investment. Lisa's going to talk about the financing options as far as purchasing both of these types of homes. And so with a fix and flip, you do have to put up more money, for that, to purchase the property. So as well as doing the repairs. So there's different types of lending that you can use,
Yeah.
to assist in that. But that's also an upfront investment that is required for that, right?
Absolutely. And
And
the
then
saying goes, greater risk, greater return, right?
rate of
So
return, right, right. And then the other is market timing sensitivity. So a lot of times, investors, they start to look for their property. Let's say they want it on the market by June, right?
mhm,
So,
it's a good time.
so then they want to give themselves 3 months prior to that. So maybe around in March, investors are really looking for that property. Let's see, that's 3 months. That's too long, right? It's too long, right? So, but around then, March, April, they know that they want it on the market in June. That's for
Yeah.
Chicago. Chicago is we have a spring market because our weather is different here. A lot of people
Our weather is very different.
right, as it rains today. Right,
Just thought I would throw that in there. Yeah.
right,
It's
right,
highly unique. Just so
right.
anybody from outside of Chicago and that's watching this, just so you know, our weather is highly unique. There's
Yeah,
nothing like it.
yeah. So maybe in Florida, California, things like that, the warmer areas, warmer climate, it may not be the same as Chicago, where you're trying to time it in June,
Yeah.
right? They can purchase all year long. They can work all year long. We can too, but a lot of people don't want to work in the cold. So,
Right.
right. So,
And depending on what you have to do, sometimes you can't even do it because weather will stop you from doing certain things, even on rehabbing a house. So yeah, definitely. So I'm kind of curious to know, for people that are out there watching and listening on today, if you wouldn't mind dropping in the chat, what are you most comfortable with? Like, because we just talked about the pros and cons of buying whole versus fix and flip. What do you like? Steady
yeah.
income or quick cash?
Right. Put it in the comments below. Even if you're watching this later, which one do you want to do? Which one are you interested in? Fixing and flips or buying whole? So, and we definitely can help you with both of those.
Absolutely.
Right,
So we
Lisa.
do want to talk a little bit about the financing part because
Yeah,
that's really important. Not everybody has, $100,000 laying around in an account or, in the mattress or wherever that they can use to spend and buy a house with cash. So there are some specific types of financing that we can look at in order to be able to help you. So I would say the probably one that you already know about would be conventional. because conventional, unlike government loans are designed for you to live in the house, right? So in this case, because you're not living in it, a conventional loan would be more suitable, because a conventional loan, you can either live in house or not live in house. So you would get the kind of loan for conventional where you would purchase it as an investment property and say that you're not living there. So it is though going to still be a higher down payment. So for a conventional, when you do investment property, that is going to be usually about 20% down. I have seen where they can charge more, where they, depending on how the findings come out, they may require more money down. Keep in mind, everything is based upon risk. So if the system detects or determines that there's more risk on a particular loan, then adjustments can be made to mitigate and accommodate that. So conventional loans, excuse me, you usually need a 620 in order to be able to qualify. You don't have to have a very high score for a conventional loan, but you do still need to do 20% down. And really, to be honest with you, if you think about any investment loan, just keep 20% in mind, because that's typically going to be about your minimum that you have to put down. On the average, it'll be 20%. It's usually not more than that. Definitely, if you've got decent credit, like 680 or higher, you shouldn't expect to have to put more than 20% in. But they do want you to have skin in the game, because you have to keep in mind, this is not like your skin in the game in the primary residence is the fact that you live there. That's skin in the game right there, because if you don't pay the mortgage, you ain't got nowhere to live.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas on investment properties, if you don't pay the mortgage, ain't no skin off your nose, because you still got somewhere to live. So the way that they look at the risk level is different. And investment properties are considered, more like a business. You're not doing it to provide a place for yourself to stay. You're doing it to make money. I mean, unless, the M word is not a bad thing. You should be doing it to make money. If you're not into to make money, then I don't know why you in it. Because that's kind of the point. So you could definitely use
In it to
conventional
win it.
financing. Say that again.
I said you're in it to win it.
You're in it to win it. That's right. Another thing that you might not have heard of is called DSCR. That stands for debt service coverage ratio. So what that basically is, it's what I like to call as the no income loan. So, and what I mean by that is not that there isn't any income considered, but the income that's considered is the projected rent. So you do still put 20% down, but we look at your credit score and we look at the projected rent for the property that you will be purchasing. As long as the projected rent will cover the mortgage, we can do the loan. So we don't need tax returns. We don't need W-2s. I don't need your paycheck stubs. I don't need any of that. We just need to send an appraiser out there that can confirm what the market rate is for the property and your 20% and your fees. And then using that with the DSCR, we can close. I've closed several DSCR loans. So they're fun, they're quick. Now, another thing that I do want to just mention as we're talking about financing, DSCR, hard money loans, because I'm going to talk about that next. Hard money loans, things like that, they are going to be a higher interest rate. Sometimes people assume, and it makes sense because they don't really talk about this much in mainstream media, but people sometimes assume that interest rates are all made the same. But keep in mind, like I just mentioned, these are considered riskier loans because they're for business. You don't really have the same skin in the game as if you were actually living in the house. These different factors. So because of that, the interest rates on these are always going to be higher. I would say a good way to gauge what your rate might be is if you know that the average mortgage rate today is, say, 7%. Add 2% to that, and that's probably what your rate is going to be on a loan like a DSCR or a fix and flip or something.
Right. A lot of people may do a DSCR, but then maybe refinance afterwards, especially like with a hard money loan, because even with a hard money loan, because they're doing a fix and flip and stuff, they after 3 months, I think they may not have to pay until after 3 months on the mortgage, right?
Right. And even
like
when you do, Yeah, you usually get a couple months off on, and that's good because that transition just right into the fix and flip financing, which basically is usually going to be your hard money. So
Mhm.
you cannot use a DSCR loan to purchase a property that you're going to do a fix and flip on. DSCR has to be for a property that it's rent ready. So
Oh,
when you
okay.
close on it, somebody can move in the same day and sign a lease because it's ready to rent. That's what a
Okay.
DSCR is designed for. Now, the fix and flip loans or the hard money stuff, that's a little different. So the way those work is you do 20% of the purchase price. So like, let's just say for round numbers to make it easy for me, um, you find a house that's $100,000 and you have to pay 20% of that in order to get into the loan. So you'd be putting $20,000 down. Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
then let's just say that your renovations are going to be 50,000. So you only pay the 20% off of the 100,000 and then we include the 50,000 so you have a renovation budget.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's how that's done. So we give you 100% of the renovation budget, but you do have to put 20% on the acquisition cost. So
Okay.
just kind of a caveat to that, it's good for people to know. I learned this just by being in the industry. Lenders do not like it when you come to them with a property that has more renovations than the acquisition cost. People think, oh, this is a great deal. I'm gonna buy this house for $5,000 and get a loan, for $50,000 to fix it up. No, you're not, because you're not gonna put 20% off of five and then we give you 50. Mm-mm.
Mm-hmm.
It's not gonna go down like that. So that is something to keep in mind. You want to know how the lender's gonna look at it because that will help you knowing how to place a deal, or how to select a deal, determine if it's something that's financeable. Is that a word? Financeable. Yeah, it's got to be a word. Financeable. It makes sense. It sounds right.
Yeah.
So, so that would be something to think about and to keep in mind for your fix and flips. Another thing about fix and flips is they typically are going to be 6 months to maybe 2 years. On the average, I would say your fix and flip loan will probably be up to maybe about 12 months. You don't want to stay in a fix and flip loan. Again, this is the strategy where you get in and get out. So you don't want to stay in a fix and flip loan for a long time. So you get in, you use the money to fix up the property, put it on the market, you sell it, you pay off that loan and get your money back. Get
Right.
your profit.
Yeah. Because I think because the interest rate is so high, then it just doesn't benefit you to so even if you decide you like, okay, the flip doesn't work and I'm gonna hold it, it doesn't benefit you to still stay with that
Oh
loan.
no, if you decide you want to hold it, then come back and talk to me because at that point we need to refinance you out of that hard money loan and put
Hmm.
you into a different kind of loan so that you can have a lower interest rate. Because
Yeah,
even a DSCR loan will still have a lower interest rate than a hard money loan.
yeah, yeah,
A lot of times I've seen hard money loans in the teens. So
yeah,
or
yeah.
double digits. Let me say it that way. Like I've seen them, well, I have seen them 13% too, but I've seen them in double digits, like 10%, 11%. I've seen that.
Hmm. And so the idea is people get the hard money loan because they said, okay, this is a loan to give me the money because
Right.
that's,
Just short term.
right. It's short
Mhm.
term. You're accepting the risk, right? That's what we talked about. And so you're going to accept the risk and you have this higher interest rate to pay back. And so you're getting in and making the changes that you need to make in the 30 days or or last 10 for my favorite zombie guy. Right. Right. Right.
Right.
He's
I'm gonna
in
have to look
Vegas,
him
by the
up.
way. Right, right. So, and so then you get out and you don't have to worry about that high interest rate. So
Yeah,
mhm,
absolutely.
yeah. So
All
so
right.
we
Well, I think we did it again.
right. We talked a lot, and I don't know. Put in the comments whether what you're interested in. Are you interested in the fix and flip or the buy and hold? Just let us know. We're here for you. and you want to talk about, I want to get into investing, and you need to start to have some conversations about lending, give Lisa a call, right? She's there for you. And then once you've got all your money ideas together and know, okay, I'm ready to start this investing process, then you can come on over, give me a call, and we can start looking for that property that you might be interested in. All
Yes,
right. So,
absolutely.
right. So,
Thank
and
you for joining us.
right. And do us a favor. Go on to YouTube and look for us on Water Cooler Wednesdays, and go ahead and subscribe to our channel. We're excited to have more people. We need more viewers. And you can subscribe there and share as well. Share with your friends. Let them know what's going on, that we're here
That's
every
Wednesdays with an
Wednesday.
S.
Every Wednesday. Every Wednesday. Thank you.
Have a good night, everybody. Bye.